Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome to our Monday, June 20th school board meeting, and we'll start off with our agenda approval, deletions, additions. Dr. Baraka.
Thank you, Mrs. Suze. You do have an amended agenda before you. You've got some amendments under Roman numeral 7D, 1 and 2 under Mrs. Castaneda's, and 7F, 3 under Mr. Ledyard's section. Thank you.
Move to approve the agenda as stated.
We have a motion by
With the
Dr.
amendments.
Medlin. Second by Mr. Marshall. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Ms. Kelly, is there any correspondence?
Nothing to report on this evening.
All right, we'll move right into our liaison committee updates. Mr. Marshall.
Nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. Mrs. Kelly.
Redevelopment Commission, I don't have anything this evening. Parks Department, we had our ribbon cutting to reopen Norman Park this Saturday. So it's fabulous, fabulous job. Equipment looks great. Take a look if you get a chance. What else? Splash pad, pushback, construction, rain. We're hoping for the end of July. Fingers crossed. We'll see. Parks Department. If anybody has a high school student who's looking for a part-time summer job still, Parks Department is desperate for summer help. So keep that in mind.
Thank you. Dr. Medlin.
Nothing to report other than I am going to talk to somebody with regard to the Wellness Committee to see what things they have coming up for this fall. That is all.
Great. Dr. Malco.
Lake Central Education Committee met, and they're working on their fundraiser. The next one will be in November, and that will be our run that we have last year. Will we repeat that again this year? I'm not sure of all the particulars yet. That's in November. And then the second fundraiser will be, it's going to be a wine tasting event, I believe, to be held in February. I will keep you updated about that, because hopefully we can all attend and show support. And Dyer Parks Department meets, I think, next week, so I have nothing to share with that. Thank you.
Okay, and my St. John Redevelopment Commission meetings, I have nothing to report. In Dollars for Scholars, we are going to be posting that meeting for planning for homecoming, so if anybody'd like to join us with that.
Sure.
We'll be doing that, and I know that there is a community member that is also going to be putting together a zombie run, and he is going to donate all the proceeds back to Dollars for Scholars. So that'll be happening I think he said the Saturday after homecoming, so I think that's the 8th, if I'm correct. But when I have that information, I will be sure to share it. So we'll move on to our official school board business topics consent agenda. Dr. Varacco.
Thank you again. Seek board approval for the minutes from our special board meeting on June 6th, as well as our regular board meeting, and then also seek board approval for the claims, payroll, and extracurricular expenditures that you have received in advance in your packets.
Motion to approve those items.
Motion by Mrs. Kelly and a second by Mr. Marshall. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Is there any public comments regarding action items? There are none, so we'll move right into our official school board business topics regular agenda. Dr. Baracco.
We are excited to have members of the Kaler staff here to be recognized for their work with Best Buddies. I'd like to bring up Tim Doyle, assistant principal, for him to do a little intro, and we get to hear about this neat recognition.
Yes, Tim Doyle, assistant principal at Kaler. I'm excited to be here tonight to recognize 4 of our staff members who have served as sponsors for our Best Buddies program. And these 4, 3 of which are with us tonight, have worked tirelessly to promote inclusion in the building and to quickly grow the program into something that's really been embraced by staff, students, and the people in the community as well. And their efforts have been recognized by the state of Indiana Best Buddies, who this year recognized Kaler Middle School as the outstanding middle school Best Buddies chapter in the state of Indiana.
Tim, can you act as my proxy and give him a high five for me?
I would like to take your pictures, if that's okay. Mr. Doyle? That's quite an accomplishment. Ready? Thank you.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. I was gonna say a few words just about Best Buddies. We started working on Kaler Best Buddies in August of 2019. We wanted to start our chapter in a big way. We spent the year planning, preparing, and fundraising. We officially became a chapter in the fall of 2020, and at Best Buddies International's annual leadership conference, we were honored as the outstanding middle school chapter in Indiana. Our chapter also became an established chapter. We had a successful year in spite of the COVID restrictions, but it was not the same. This year, we were honored as the Best Buddies Indiana Middle School Chapter of the Year, and we are in the running for the Best Buddies International's Middle School Chapter of the Year. We were finally able to hold in-person events for the first time. We worked hard to come up with fun, educational, and inclusive events. One of the things that we wanted to do was to get other clubs and teams involved along with the staff. For our first event, our art teacher, Chris Guzman, provided a lesson on Keith Haring and showed us how to draw our Best Buddies logo. We worked with our track teams to attend the conference track meet. Several of our buddies participated in the unified 100-meter dash. We also started an initiative to get more staff active at our events, which we hope to grow next year. For Disabilities Awareness Month, many of our members gave speeches during an advisory teaching students and staff about various topics related to this month, including inclusion, Best Buddies, Down Syndrome Awareness Day, and many others. We held 3 fundraisers that raised money to enable our chapter to help our school become a Champions Together school, for which we raised over $2,000. And we also helped Best Buddies Indiana by raising money for the Lake County French County Friendship Walk, which we raised over $3,000. We also held our second annual end of the year breakfast where we honored several of our members for the hard work. Keller Best Buddies has worked hard this year to grow our program, promote inclusion, and help our school and community become more accepting. We have strived to follow Best Buddies' missions and goals. The dedicated members, whether they are buddies, peer buddies, associate members, or advisors, have worked together to make Best Buddies a force within our school and community.
Thank you, Tim.
Brent, you guys are welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting, or you can head on out and enjoy the evening if you have other things to do. But we appreciate you coming out and sharing with us the good work at Kaler. And I think I'm very proud of how we've expanded what we've done in the area of inclusion, not just at Kaler, but in all of our schools. But thank you so much for what you've done.
Great job.
Thank you.
And I was going to add that I was talking to a parent just this afternoon, and his child has graduated from Lake Central, but he just is so honored that his child attended Lake Central and had the experience he did, and was amazed at the outreach and availability of support services for his son. And he loved the TAP program, and that's not the first time I've heard that. So kudos for you for establishing a part of that foundation that follows them through the years. You know what they say, the cream rises to the top, right? So you're the foundation and you bring it on up, so good for you.
Okay, I'll move on to my next item, which is to give the board an update on our UNI project. The UNI is the mobile library. I was visiting with Elena Ahrens recently, and if you recall, about a year and a half ago, we were able to double the size of our shelving. If you've ever seen us, when they pull it out at the park, they put the books on display and have some benches for children to sit on, and sometimes we have teachers show up to be guest readers at these events. And so we doubled the size of our shelving, but then with COVID, we really didn't utilize it. So I'll give one final shout out to my fellow Rotarians in the Cherville Rotary Club, because they paid for about half of the second installment of shelving units. And Elena was lamenting the other day that she's having to go back to the elementary libraries and raid books because so many are being checked out, which, if there's any sign of success with a program, is that kids are taking these books and they're continuing to read all summer long. And so the project has been an incredible success, and we're really happy for that. And I wanted the board to know just where we are. So any questions about the UNI and where it's going? There is a calendar of upcoming visits posted on the website. Okay, thank you. My next item is to give the board a recap from the seminar we went to on June 1st down in Indianapolis. It was a legal seminar. There were some important topics that we heard about and in some ways discussed on the way back from the trip. Mrs. Suze and Dr. Medlin attended with me. The first item was one that I think we're in pretty good shape on, and that was a discussion about public comment at school board meetings. There was a piece of legislation passed that forced boards that weren't taking comments at every meeting to do so. This does include our work sessions, so since it's a public meeting, we would have to take comments at a work session. We typically review board policies in its initial form and then bring them to this setting for action, and that's typically when we've had comments, if we have comments at these public meetings. But if someone were to show up, we would need to listen to them. It was interesting that the attorney said, you know, while at your regular public board meetings, you have to listen to comments, you don't necessarily engage in a back and forth. At your work session, since you're not taking action, you probably wouldn't engage in a back and forth. You can, but you likely would not. And so we have a format here where we have a section for public comments on action items. And we're intentional about it and we're specific about it so that anyone who says, before you vote, I'd like to say something, because I'd like to influence or at least weigh in on what I think about how this could impact our students. And so given that, I believe we really have that well covered. And then the people who want to comment about something that's not on our agenda, but they think may be coming down the pike or in the future, that's when we take comments at the end of the meeting. And so we do satisfy both types of constituents, both types of guests at our meetings. They did cover the limits. Most people are doing a 2 or a 3 minute limit per person. We've been at 3. We have never stopped taking comments. We ask people not to be redundant, but you know, we have allowed for some of that because if people come and sit in the room, this board, going back to the first board I served under, believes people who show up deserve to be heard, and I think that's a good policy, you know, to do that. I mean, I want to say one more time, though, that the public access counselor, who was one of the 2 presenters on this, did say more than once, it's public comment. They don't have a right to grill you and try to dig down deeper and catch you off guard. So in many cases, the answer is, you know, we'll take it under advisement or we'll get back to you, or, you know, the superintendent can do a little more research on that and get back to you in the next week if you come up at the end of the meeting and give contact information. So I think we're doing pretty well on that piece. And so, you know, kudos to this board and the boards that preceded you for hearing people. The next item was a transgender issue I just wanted to touch briefly on to make sure the board understands that it qualifies as a Title IX issue, and that's where the legal pieces come into play with the Office of Civil Rights. Possibly even the Department of Justice could get involved in enforcement. There was one recent case that I want to mention with a student who was a transgender male who was using the boys' restroom, and then when a staff member caught wind of it, said, I'm not comfortable with that. The school denied the formal request to use the boys' restroom. The lower court granted access. It went to the 7th Court of Appeals, and they affirmed against the school district. So the 7th Court is the one that governs us, and so the most recent case law is that that student gets to use the restroom of their choice. It's important to know that this case law will continue to change, and we'll continue to watch it diligently. It has not been a big issue for us thus far. I don't think people are trying to make waves or be outlandish, but I do think that they want to use the restroom of their choice, and currently that's the standard that we'll follow. And then my final piece is they did a presentation on employee rights to political speech. And this gets into when is it appropriate and when is it not. And it really comes down to sort of a litmus test we've followed for years. If it interferes with the performance of their duties, well then, you know, you have the right to step in and say, that's not what you're supposed to be teaching in mathematics, talking about the presidential election in the manner in which you're doing it. It always gets gray though, because our teachers, you know, they're well educated, so when students ask them questions that aren't even on topic, they like to address it with students. If you ignore student questions, it creates a problem with the relationship. But there is a point at which someone's making a political statement that can be disruptive to the school day, similar to what students do. If you go back to the case law on when students can wear an armband or not, or when students can you know, have signs about using drugs. Well, if it's considered disruptive to the school environment, it's a no. If it's not disruptive, then you probably need to allow it. And so that part hasn't changed. It's just important that our board meetings can be considered these political things. And so the board members, they even talked a little bit about board members, if they're up for election, can they make a statement on the stage about their candidacy, or can they pass out materials? And of course, you know, if you allow it, then you need to allow it for all. And it was a pretty simple summary on that. And then one thing that wasn't at our conference, but I did want to put it on this sheet just for our board, because there was some legislation passed regarding training for officers working inside of school buildings. This is really Terry's lane, and most of these notes I got from a conversation with Terry. But during the 2022 session, any person who is assigned to one or more schools during the school hours would need to have the specific NASRO training, which all of our officers have. Where it gets gray is, you know, we have at the high school a 2 to 6 person who generally comes from the county, and they not only walk the building, but they also drive the grounds, and they are just a presence for the roughly 800 kids we have here doing extracurricular activities. And so that officer or those officers would too, moving forward, need the training. Mrs. Mucha is arranging to figure out how to accommodate one of those such trainings here at Lake Central High School to make it convenient for our local officers, not only who serve Lake Central, but who serve other school systems in the county. But they need to receive the specialized training. The NASRO training, the one that we go through, is the most common. There are a couple other acceptable ones, but I don't think they're the ones that are being offered in Indiana right now. So we'll keep you posted on that. But the difference being, in a nutshell, our 5 SROs have always been certified. It's some folks who may come in for 2 hours at lunch or do the 2 to 6 shift. Those folks would also need to be certified. Somebody supervising at a football game doing traffic and crowd control would not need that. It's not for those evening activities. It's inside of the building is what the law pertains to. But we're in pretty good shape on that, and we'll tighten up the little piece that's missing before we get into too farther down the road. Any questions about any of those pieces?
No, thank you.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Mrs. Mucha.
We'll move right on to our Director of Human Resources Personnel, Mrs. Mucha.
Thank you. I'm asking for a recommendation to accept the personnel that was in your packet.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Marshall
Second?
and a second by Ms. Kelly. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. I also had a professional leave form for Deanne Oliva to attend, and I'm asking for your approval for that professional leave.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Ms. Kelly, and I will second that. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And my last item is I provided you with the last 5 handbooks that you needed to go through, and I'm asking for your approval for those minor changes to those handbooks.
Move to approve the employee handbooks.
I have a motion by Dr. Medlin,
And I would like to second that.
second by
Very
Dr.
much appreciate seeing those.
Thank you.
Second by Dr. Malco. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, and they'll be posted on our websites then. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move right on to our Director of Secondary Education, Mrs. Castaneda.
Thank you. For my first item, I am seeking your approval for the professional leave request, the revised copy that you received this evening.
Move to approve the professional leave requests.
We have a motion by Dr. Medlin,
Second?
second by Ms. Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you. And for my second item, I am seeking your approval for the revised copy of the field trip requests.
Motion
I'd
to
like
approve?
Motion that we accept that.
We have a motion by Dr. Malco.
Second.
Second by Ms. Kelly. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. And then for my last item, I just wanted to share some highlights from our Summer Administrative Professional Development Week, which just wrapped up last week. On Monday, June 13th, we held our usual administrative meetings. It's always nice when we have that break in the summer to bring everybody together, including the assistant principals. Additionally, the elementary principals met that day with Dr. Bracey and Becky Grimala to talk about some increased student behaviors that they're seeing at the elementary level, talk about how they could better utilize their staff, and help out students who are in crisis mode, as well as providing emotional support to staff and students. So that was a very valuable conversation for that group to have. On Tuesday, June 14th, then, in the morning, we had a workshop with Franklin Reed. Franklin Reed is a parent in the community who also works in the public sector, and so he was able to come back and continue some training with us. This particular training focused on cultural competency, which is being aware of your own cultural identity as well as learning about the cultures of others. We talked a bit about some of the covering behaviors that people sometimes demonstrate in order to try to hide their differences or downplay them, and also about the concept of cultural humility, where we're trying to then recognize where we might have some biases and be sensitive to others. We discussed ways that we could improve our cultural humility as a district by engaging with people who are different than us, showing empathy, listening, and of course being an advocate. On that afternoon on Tuesday, the administration went through Cpi training, which is an annual requirement for our building leaders. And then on Wednesday and Thursday, June 15th and 16th, we had professional development for all of the secondary administrators as well as the secondary counselors and SSPs on restorative practices. This was provided by a group called the Neutral Zone out of Michigan. They had previously done some training with our elementary principals and some of our counselors and teachers at that level, and they've had very good outcomes with students using restorative practices, so that's something we want to continue to bring up through the middle and high school level. So we talked about restorative practices, which, if you're not familiar, is an approach used in schools to create a positive climate by building relationships. And so on day one, we discussed strategies for building relationships, so that way students feel that they're part of a community no matter how big the school is. We also talked about some concepts within social discipline, so they're feeling a high level support as well as a high level of structure. We talked about fair practices in dealing with students or parents, because these can be relationships involving adults as well. And then we also had a second day where we talked about the restorative practices continuum, which ranges from more informal things such as statements about feelings, questions about what happened and how they feel a situation might be resolved, to more formal types of conferences and circles. I think by the end of the 2 days that all of the secondary staff felt it was a very beneficial training. It was good because some of the things they spoke about are practices that we're already doing, so that positive reinforcement for our administrators is definitely something that's always appreciated. And they also shared some new strategies that we can start using as soon as this next school year. So it was a very beneficial day for the secondary staff, 2 days, I should say. The elementary team on Thursday, June 16th, had Dr. Christine Eaton come in from the Indiana School Mental Health Initiative. She focused on addressing the social and emotional needs of our students, and the elementary principals are going to continue to work with her virtually throughout the 22-23 school year. Any questions?
Well, my big question is, how does, this has to filter into the schools, and so what's the plan to get that done? Because right now it's at the administrative level, so to bring that down into all the teachers in the classrooms, any ideas on how you're going to do that?
So I think a lot of it was very practical when they put it in the lens of like social discipline, where you can be punitive, you can be permissive, or you could be restorative. That makes a lot of sense, and I think we all knew moments where we had hit that higher level of being restorative, but also moments where we kind of slid back into being a little more punitive or a little more permissive. And so I think that's something that easily can be done with our staff. A lot of the community building activities they actually suggested doing with the teachers to demonstrate that to them. The other thing is that some of the activities that we have built into our PTE and our advisory already at the middle and high school level do focus on these community building type of activities and developing coping strategies, learning how to relate with other people and express your emotions in a productive way. And so we do have elements of that. I think the next step is going to be to try to educate the staff more about it, and then also possibly partnering with the neutral zone. We're kind of thinking how it will work, but they have like a train the trainer model where some of our staff who went to the 2-day training could then come back and start working with our teachers. And so we think that's probably the next step we're going to be heading in. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move right on to our Director of Facilities, Mr. Ledger.
Thank you, Mrs. Suze. Tonight, I have 7 items I'll be discussing with you. Some require action. My first item is to seek your approval to award and execute the site work trade package 3 site concrete for the Bibbage project to Larson Danielson Construction Company for $114,140. On June 1st, we opened bids for this package. We had 2 bidders, CNS and L&D. They were very competitive, and on this one, L&D won for $114,140.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second.
second by Dr. Malco. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. My next item is to seek your approval to award and execute the bid package 1 site work trade package 4 building concrete to CNS Concrete Construction for $506,000. Again, these were opened on June 1st, and it was L&D and CNS, and this one, CNS won with a very close bid of $506,000.
Also move to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second.
second by Dr. Malco. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. My next item is to seek your approval to award and execute the contract for trade package 5, the asphalt paving, striping, and parking lot signage to Reith Riley Construction for $159,408. Again, this was June 1st. We had 3 bidders, Site Services, Reith Riley, and the former Walsh and Kelly, as Mr. Marshall and I discussed last board meeting, and they were all 3 very competitive, and Reith Riley was the low responsible bidder at $159,408.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Kelly. I will second that. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. My next item was my revised agenda item, and it's kind of a Bibbage update, as along with seeking the board's approval to move our bid date. I just asked you for approval on what we called the site package. That's the package we got done on the front end of the project that we could get done expeditedly and get it out for bid. That included the 3 awards you just approved, as well as site work and site utilities. We did not have great coverage on that, so we're rebidding that next week. And then the remaining package is what we call the building package. This is all the other trade packages involved in the project, including the expansion part of the project. The renovation of the existing building, which includes the HVAC renovation as well as the acoustical ceilings of the existing hallways and classrooms. So it's basically everything except for what you approved tonight and what we're opening. We had a pre-bid meeting last week. We finished up the drawings early last week. We had a pre-bid meeting. We had a pretty good turnout, but a lot of contractors' feedback. Again, we've talked about this. These are unique times we're in right now, between manpower issues, material, and the supply chain, and right on top of the holiday, they've asked that if we could extend the bid date, and I think right now it's really not a priority for that work like site work is, so I think it'd be a lot more beneficial Lake Central if we did give that extra time where we could get a lot more competition and with bidders, so we'd like to move the bid date. We advertised for June 28th, and we'd like to move it to July 13th. So that's what, and I talked to our legal counsel this morning early, and there's a code in here that we had to abide by, which is basically the letter I gave you guys at your stations. So, but basically it's asking your approval to move the bid from next Tuesday the 28th to Wednesday, July 13th.
I think the rationale there makes sense, so I move to approve that recommendation.
Motion by Mr. Marshall,
I'll second that.
second by Ms. Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
And just to review, I brought up Mr. Ledger's request then for that special board meeting. We meet on July 11th, that we would need to meet briefly to approve what he's going to get in on the 13th. I'll let you go from there.
Right, yeah, as Dr. Rocco said, I asked him about possibly because of the July 1 board meeting, we're gonna open bids on July 13th, and then our next board meeting's not till August 1st. So, the week of July 20, I think that'd be July 18th, I might need a special board meeting for critical lead time items. I won't bring you the whole package, but I may have a half a dozen, like HVAC equipment, steel, those type of items that I'd like to get approved just as soon as we get the project scoped out. So as I said to Dr. Rocca, as long as 3 of you can attend, and we could do it in the morning or afternoon, it would just, hopefully
I was going to
30 or
suggest,
40 minutes or something.
right, I was going to suggest to my fellow board members, we make it convenient for them to select a time, and we can get a quorum there.
Sure.
And I'll let you know once we open bids, so I can have my agenda items. And so probably the 14th, I'll let the board know with an email.
Fair enough?
Great.
We will make it work.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'll need Mrs. Kelly and Mrs. Seuss to sign that document at the end of the meeting. I'll bring it to you
Okay.
and sign that. Thank you for that. The other update on Bibbage, drawings are done, out for bid. Like I said, we had a pretty good response, but the market's tough right now. And we also have found out last week, I kind of knew it in the back of my mind, but I was hoping but some contractors are affected by the Crown Point Hospital because their workforce is depleted anyhow, and a lot of them are on that. So that's also factoring into the market as well. So, but we're going forward. So, my next item is a Grimmer project update. That's going very well. I wanted to bring the board's attention. I talked to Dr. Veracco about this. I worked with Mr. Volkman, the town manager, Cheryl, as well as the town, and they approved and waived all of our permit fees for this project, which exceeded $43,000.
Nice.
So I want to thank
Thank
the
you,
town,
Cheryl.
thank Mr. Volkman for the cooperation between the town and the school corporation. And, that's $43,000 plus that we can put toward the project. So that's wonderful news.
Very generous, yes.
So, Ms. Kelly, will you pass our appreciation on to
Yes.
them at the next
I will
meeting?
make sure to let Mr. Volkman know
And
that.
Thank you.
Dr. Veracco and I have traded emails with him, thanking him as well,
Good.
but yes,
Great,
you,
yeah.
as a board member, please do. We greatly appreciate it.
I'm not biased against any other town, but
I-
Cherville is
Neither
pretty
are we,
awesome.
but no, they were fantastic, and again, that's
Great.
$43,000 we
Yes.
can put toward the project, so.
That's awesome.
My next update is basically the LC Schmidt and Arctic optimization we're doing. As I brought to you several meetings, we received a check from NIPSCO. That's part of the optimization process. We did a project in the winter, or late winter, early spring, where we've got these heat exchangers at the high school, and because of the bad water, St. John, and everything else, we have to clean them even though we soften it. And, you know, basically, our cost to do that was a little over $12,000. But going through the optimization, the NIPSCO refunds and everything else, we got $5,460 back. So it basically equated to 43% of the project was paid for by them. So that was wonderful news. On that matter, just last week, I received an email from NIPSCO. We filed all the paperwork, and they have approved the incentive offer and rebate for the Grimmer project, which just aforementioned, for $62,131.84.
Wow.
So that's a rebate from NIPSCO for the upgrade in the efficiency and energy consumption at Grimmer project.
Nice, very nice.
Great.
Great result.
Yes.
My last item is just the annual update of the summer project list. We're starting week 4, so we've had 3 weeks down. We've completed about 38% of the projects already. Some of the major projects we've completed to date, we repaved the south parking lot at Holman. That's completely done and striped. We've replaced a large concrete sidewalk at Grimmer, as well as added a sidewalk at Pfeiffer for access for snow removal equipment to the back area. We completed the 4th grade roof replacement on the east half at Grimmer. And one big project we are in the midst of, we started last week, is we are having to replace the tanks at Transportation Center. The 12,000 gallon diesel tank, the 5,000 gallon gasoline tank, they're over 30 years old, so they're being replaced. We're going with above ground tanks. So last week we removed both those tanks. It was quite the process. It took 3 days, and we have quite the mini Grand Canyon over at Transportation right now. It has been backfilled up to 12 inches below grade. So those tanks are gone. They're disposed of. We had Americo Environmental Engineering out there to do all the testing that the EPA requires. They took all the samples last week. They are in for testing right now. I should have those results by sometime after the holiday. And they're out there today, and they'll be out there all week running the new underground piping, because we still have to run underground piping from the dispensers, which is what you guys refer to as a gas pump, back to our above ground tanks. And then the concrete, well, there's a bunch of concrete work associated with that. That starts next Monday. And then our tanks are going to be delivered the week of July 11th. So that's a big project going on, and so we want to have that up and running by the time school starts. And other projects, as you can see by the list, are ongoing, and I'll have an update at the next meeting. Any questions?
Yes, Bill.
sir.
Point of information. You talked about the fuel tanks.
Yes.
Metal?
I'm sorry?
Are they metal?
They are the above ground, the underground tanks are of double-walled fiberglass.
That's
The-
what I
the
thought.
The above-ground tanks will be double-lined steel.
Oh, they are steel.
If you watch the Indianapolis 500 in pits, they kind of look sort of like that. They're on 4-leg pedestals,
Gotcha.
on concrete pad, but they're steel double-lined tanks.
Okay, very good.
This is quite the to-do list.
It's a lot, it's a big list.
It's like, whoa.
Yes. Oh, we did, another thing we're finishing tomorrow, the fencing repairs at the JV softball and baseball fields should be done tomorrow.
Oh, good.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Bill, I have a question. Someone had mentioned that our teams, your custodial teams, were working 4 days, 10-hour days?
No.
You're doing the 5-day week?
Yes.
5-day week, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, public comments, there are none this evening, so we're going to move right on to board comments and consideration. No? Yeah, board comments and consideration of future agenda items. But I would like to start tonight. I just would like to congratulate Dr. Veraco for Superintendent of the Year for District 1 by the Indiana Association of Superintendents. So his peers,
No.
so congratulations on that. Thank you. All right, and with that, we'll move on with Mr. Marshall.
Well, as they've always said, anyone that garners the honor of Superintendent of the Year must have a good board behind him. No, congratulations,
Yes.
Larry.
Ms. Kelly,
Yep, same. Congratulations, Larry, well deserved.
Dr. Medlin,
Congratulations, Larry.
Dr. Malco.
Well, congratulations. But I have a question now. Does every district elect someone as their superintendent? And then do all those 9 districts or 8 districts, whatever there are, do they then do a superintendent of the year for the state? Like, are you in the running for another competition?
Yeah, we're like District 1, so we're 5 counties in this part of the state. And then
So there's like 8 districts, aren't there?
there are 9, and then out of those 9 groups, they'll select one for statewide
Cool.
And
that
when
would
will
be
that
nice.
selection take place?
later this summer. I don't know exactly when.
That's announced at the fall conference.
At the fall
if I
conference, yes.
remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, congratulations and good
And
luck
good
on
luck,
that.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do we need to write letters of recommendation or anything?
Not at this time.
Well, let us know.
So with that, we'll move on to our board calendar of future activities, Dr. Rocco.
So we only have one meeting in July, and, but the lines of communication are open. And as you see Bill's list, there's certainly a lot of activity going on around the district in order to get ready for the start of the next school year. And I'll say Bill's doing a commendable job on how much has already been done. And you can drive on any property and you can see that everybody's getting some love. So that's important for our staff and for our families and our students to see those sections of sidewalk get repaired and to see those little things get fixed so that place is neat and tidy. And we're very proud of the work that is being done by our custodial maintenance staff as well as those vendors that are coming in from the outside to help us spruce the place up. So thanks, Bill.
All right, with that, we'll move for adjournment.
Move for adjournment.
Motion by Mr. Marshall, all in favor?
Second.
Second by Dr. Medlin, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adjourned.